Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. Let's switch gears now for a moment, talking deep politics. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has registered 21 new political parties. With these, Nigeria now has 67 political parties. The INEC National Commissioner, Mrs. May Agbamuchi-Umbu, says the decision to register the new parties was taken during the weekly meeting of the electoral body held at the INEC headquarters in Abuja. Let's get into these, and we have the pleasure of the presence of INEC Director of Publicity and Voter Education. He joins us from our Abuja studio, Mr. Oluwole Osaze Uzi. Thank you so much for your time on the program tonight. It seems to me that a lot of decisions were made at that meeting. Tell us first and foremost about this issue of Kogi State double registration, the alleged double registration by the governor. INEC is saying in that statement that because the governor is under immunity, that look, nothing can be done. But what did INEC discover in that circumstance?
Well, recall that when the story first broke, that I think the photograph circulated online and allegations were made, reports were made that the governor had allegedly done double registration or multiple registration. The commission decided to investigate the matter because you cannot register without INEC officials. So we wanted to see whether registration was actually done, whether it was done in the right place, whether the person, as the governor, was entitled to be registered if he had registered again. So we went to investigate, found out that he had registered in the FCT, found out there's another attempt to register him in Government House, Lokoja, which is not a designated center for registration. And we called the electoral officers and those who were involved, or allegedly involved, in the registration. We found some of those facts to be proven, and they were offered the opportunity of defending themselves, which they did. Normal processes and procedures were followed. The query was issued. They offered written explanation, and then they were invited. So there was a painstaking administrative inquiry into what had happened, and a case was made out against administratively against several of those people, and penal measures were taken in accordance with the INEC conditions of service and the public service rules. And the ones that were exonerated, or found not blameworthy in any way, were indeed exonerated.
Mr. Osaze, can you tell us that it was in an attempt by the governor of Kogi State to register, or he did actually register?
Well, the question is whether the second registration, whether taking the machine to a place not designated as a registration center and capturing his data was clearly wrong. It's wrong for the governor or any other person who has previously registered. If you have previously registered and you wish to register to change your residence where you registered, then you apply for a transfer. And you make that application in the local government office or a designated center for that purpose. You don't do it in the privacy of your house or in an office or any other non-designated place for registration. So there are several issues here. Doing it outside of designated registration center is wrong, and not transferring but going to re-register when you have already registered, when your name already appears in a database as being registered, that's also wrong.
I mean, the question will be, INEC is stating here that because the governor is under immunity, he may not be able to do anything, but will INEC be investigating or perhaps taking this case up when the governor perhaps leave office?
Let's be clear on one thing. The INEC is not an investigative body. What we did was an administrative inquiry, an administrative investigation against our staff who, it was alleged, committed certain administrative infractions and infractions of the Electoral Act. So the lawyers will tell you whether a governor can be investigated. But offenses committed on the Electoral Act should be prosecuted by the commission. But we cannot prosecute any governor because of the immunity enjoyed by governors and the president. They enjoy immunity, so cannot be prosecuted. Certainly, when they lose that immunity, then they become liable to be prosecuted. Yes.
All right, let me quickly ask you. INEC says it is waiting for certified true copies of the judgment, asking that the candidate of the PDP at that Anambra Central election should be sworn in by the Senate President. Has INEC received the certified true copy, or you're going ahead with the January 13th scheduled Anambra Central district elections?
Well, the status quo, as I understand it, is that we have fixed a date for that election, January 13th. And we are proceeding with that election, except there is a clear legal impediment for us to proceed with it. Now, we have read, we've heard, counsel was there, we've heard of a judgment. For us to say exactly what that judgment says, we'll have to read that judgment and see the order that was made, see the reason and the order that was made. It is only when you have done that you take an informed decision whether you are going to proceed, whether the judgment of the High Court supersedes that of the Court of Appeal, whether you juxtapose the judgment of the High Court with that disqualifying the PDP candidate by the Court of Appeal and the more recent judgment of the Court of Appeal. So we'll look at all the legal issues and then take an informed decision.
All right, quickly, and I will try to get the perspectives from yourself and Mr. Ajijola, who joins us via Skype from Akure now. Quickly, Mr. Ajijola, there is 21 more political parties, bringing 67 political parties. Just in a few seconds, Mr. Ajijola, tell us, what does this mean for Nigeria politics generally?
If all of them field candidates in an election. And as you see from the Anambra election, where we had a record turnout of 37 candidates, we find that only 4 parties contributed 99% of the total voter turnout in the last Anambra election, while 33 parties contributed less than 1% of the total voter turnout. So what we find out is, on total votes cast. So what we find out is that having so many 67 parties, at the end of the day, you might find out that 2 or 3 parties will have over 98%. So I think we need to find a way with the National Assembly to review this, to create a way to limit the number of parties. I also feel that a lot of people, like there's a party, all blending party and all those, so many of them, I think we read parties, and those who want to go into politics must begin to see how to work their way into existing party structures to merge political parties and create formidable opposition and parties, rather than everybody registering his own party. I think it's a major challenge for us.
All right, as we close now, Mr. Oluwole, let me allow you to anchor here. INEC, 2 years or so ago, deregistered a lot of political parties, running to about 30 or so, or 25. I can't remember vividly now. If you tell us, is INEC looking to deregister again? We had this number. This looked like a déjà vu to us at this moment. In 30 seconds, if you just weigh in.
Well, we will separate the registration of parties from the deregistration of parties. Certain clauses in the Electoral Act under which we relied on have been held to be unconstitutional, but any association that meets the qualification will be registered, and anyone that runs foul of the law will be deregistered.
Mr. Oluwole is the director at INEC in charge of voter education and publicity. Mr. Abiodun Ajijola, who has been talking to us from Akure, is the executive director of Election Monitor, and also Mr. Monday Ubani, second vice president of the Nigerian Bar Association. My guest tonight on the program. Many thanks for your time and your interventions. Thank you so much, everyone, for being part of the show. And that's it for tonight. I'm Sean Kimbaloye. Bye-bye.